Good afternoon, and welcome to this installment of Epic Insight. This is Brian Lenz, Director of Sales and Strategic Partnerships here at Epic, and I will be your host again for today's call. We thank you for joining us for a presentation from Anders Smith, a Managing Director at Nuveen. Anders is with us to share Nuveen's insights surrounding plan profitability. He will address how to undertake a formal profitability assessment for each plan and suggest strategies that might help to turn around those that are currently in the red. In Anders' role as a managing director on the Nuveen DCIO sales team, he works with financial advisors and record keepers to help them grow their retirement practices. Anders is a nationally known speaker presenting at numerous industry events. Previously, Anders was a member of the Nuveen Investments Wealth Management Services team, where he consulted with leading financial advisors around the country, helping them to enhance their value to develop relationships with high net worth clients. Prior to joining Nuveen in 2003, Anders spent 17 years with MFS Investment Management, where he was a wholesaler, national account manager, and director of the MFS Institute, providing value-add tools and training for financial advisors. As always, your line will be muted throughout the call today, but if you have any questions you'd like us to address at the conclusion, please do enter those in the questions panel, and we'll field those at the end. Without further ado, we'll turn it over to Anders Smith. Anders, take it away.
Great, Brian. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience as I work through my technical issues this afternoon, and I do appreciate your patience, and it's a pleasure to be here. I listened to that introduction, very kind introduction. It just seems to get longer and longer the older that I get. I thank you for listening through that as well. But it's a topic here that we're talking about, this topic surrounding profitability that has really reemerged as a critical issue for a number of advisors as they work with their plan sponsor clients. Something that we at Nuveen uncovered several years ago in our conversations with what we call our advisory council, a group of advisors that we bring in every year to ask them about the challenges that they face. And they always share great ideas with us and have great insights into the business. And they were a bit ahead of the game as far as this was concerned, because they were looking at this and thinking about the impact of the potential of fee compression and the potential consolidation in the industry, as they were being asked more and more from their plan sponsors to do more for them as an advisor to help their participants and help their participants achieve healthy retirement outcomes. And they were struggling not just with this issue around profitability, but really with the issue around how do we, in this environment, continue to grow our business effectively. We know that we're making money and that we're driving revenues into our practice, but we aren't really able to identify, and again, this goes back about 4 or 5 years at that time, not really able to look at and identify where we should be investing in our business so that we can grow it appropriately. And so we've started to dig into this and identify some best practices from these advisors on how to really streamline your business, streamline your practice, and not just be able to provide those services to the plan sponsors and participants so that they can have healthy retirement outcomes, but also to help advisors such as yourselves to have a healthy business outcome for your practice. So as we work with advisors and firms out there, we're trying to help you continue to be successful, both from a practice management standpoint on topics like this, and then certainly as you're implementing the strategies, the investment solutions, and utilizing some of the resources that we have, the investment solutions from Nuveen, including our target date funds, you can help your plan sponsor clients identify low-cost menus and solutions for their plan menus as well. So as we look at profitability, this issue, and we're going to really kind of look at it in the standpoint, if my computer will work. Let me see. My slides are now not moving forward for some reason. Oops. Get a picture of my kids there. Well, bear with me, and I will walk through this topic with you and try to demonstrate for you. Here we go. Let's try this. Here we go. Here we go. The agenda that will follow. So first of all, we'll take a look at the kind of the overall picture of profitability, get an idea as to what profitability might look like, and then think about how to identify and prospect what an ideal client might look like, and then how then you can manage and enhance your profitability going forward. And oftentimes what I'll do here is refer to the movie you may have seen a couple years ago by Michael Lewis, based on the book by Michael Lewis called Moneyball. And there's a great scene in that movie that it shows Brad Pitt as Billy Bean talking to his lead scout, talking about the introduction of sabermetrics as a as a new model for him in terms of assessing whether or not to add a player to the team and at what price point and what they can add to the to the production offensively to the team. And the scout's looking at him like he has three eyes, saying, my goodness, I've been doing this for 40 years. I know this business. I know these players. I know in my gut which are the best ones that we should be signing. All these numbers and quantitative stuff are mumbo jumbo. And Billy Bean said, listen, you have a choice here, right? This is the future of how we're going to be managing this team. We're using numbers, quantitative metrics to identify who's going to be able to add to our production over time. It's not going to be done the way it used to be. You either have to adapt to how we're doing it going forward, or you're going to die. You're going to be a dinosaur in this business. And as we've seen, more and more teams have now incorporated sabermetrics into their process for assessing talent. And we're at much the same place in our business right now, right? We need to think about more thoughtfully how we want to run our business, how we want to run our practices going forward, because our business is changing. It's evolving. The conflict of interest rule by the Department of Labor, regardless of what might ultimately happen, whether it gets delayed or not even implemented at all, in many ways it has opened that door to a real transformation in how we run our business and how we run our practices. So as you take a look at what our profitability picture might look like, in many ways the old way was to just kind of look at it on the back of a napkin. Right? Identify that, hey, I'm receiving revenues. I know I'm doing good business. I think it's going in the right direction. It's going up quarter over quarter. So I think I'm doing all right. Anymore, we just can't do it that way, right? We have to be a little bit more thoughtful. And as you think about your profitability, it's really going to be colored by the prism through which you look at it, right? Every advisor is going to look at it a little bit differently depending on, A, the type of firm that they work for, whether it's a wirehouse firm, an independent, an RIA, and how they define the revenues that they receive and the types of resources that they have at their disposal in order to run their practice. But that also is going to depend on the focus of your business or your practice, whether or not you truly are a specialist as a retirement plan advisor, or whether the retirement plans in your practice are an addendum or an addition to your wealth management practice, really an accommodation for clients that allows you to maintain or expand on an existing relationship. As a retirement specialist, it's probably even more critical for you to be profitable, to make sure that the plans that you're managing are profitable, because that's where you're expecting to get the majority of your revenues. As a wealth manager, the plans may not need to be as profitable. It actually may be okay if you have several plans that aren't profitable, but if they're leading to other revenue opportunities for you, it makes them a worthwhile addition to your practice. So when you think about your situation, think about where you are and what it is that you need from your business, think about the retirement plans that you have, and think about how profitable you need them to be. And what we find advisors are doing is they're defining a target level of profitability. They're looking at their plan business that I need it to be at least 25% or 30% profitable. That's about the average that we see advisors shooting for or targeting. So once you turn on the lights and pay all the bills and cover all your expenses, you want to have 25 to 30% left over as profit. And so as you think about for your business and your practice, what does that look like? Where does that need to be for it to make sense for you to be successful? And when we look at the top concerns that most advisors are facing today, the top 5, and this is from a survey that's done by Plan Advisor magazine. This is the results from their 2015 year. The 2016 numbers are just coming out. And this is their experience survey, and it asks, as one of many questions, what an advisor's or retirement plan advisor's primary concern is. And as is often the case, adding new clients is listed at the top, but in this case, it's only because it's alphabetically at the beginning. Usually, from a numerical standpoint, it's at the top of the list, but it has actually dropped down. The number one issue now is government regulation, right? This overhanging issue of the DOL rule, conflict of interest rule, and how that's going to impact advisors. And the issues around fee compression continue to increase in their concern that advisors are facing. But then also you see practice management and competition, practice differentiation as being critical issues. And among that, I would include things like profitability. So advisors aren't just looking at the broad, overarching environmental issues that have faced our business for years, such as the economy, and the markets, and other kind of taxes and those kinds of things. But really, they're looking at how some of those larger issues are affecting their business specifically, and how to manage that business appropriately. So this is a survey that we can make available to you. It's also in Plan Advisor magazine. It's very enlightening. There's a lot of interesting information in there. And you can see some of the trends that have been occurring over time. But what our feeling is that what makes sense is, as you're looking at your practice, there are a number of benefits that you can obtain from doing an analysis of the profitability of the plans. First of all, you want to know whether or not those plans are providing that financial return that you need. You're hitting that target profitability level. But it also allows you to look at how you're servicing those plans and allow you to think about ways that you could refine that service model, the cost structure, how you're performing your prospecting efforts to make sure you're bringing on the right kind of clients. Because what you can do as you go through the analysis is you can identify those variables of those most profitable plans, and also the variables or the characteristics of those unprofitable plans. And you can, then you can be clear that, hey, these types of plans don't make sense for my business, but these plans over here, be it a determination based on the number of participants in the plan, the size of the assets, the location, whatever it may be, the industry that they're in, what are those common threads among those most profitable plans, and you can work towards replicating those. And then also it allows you to really look at how you gather and organize the most important information for both prospective clients, prospects that are out there, but your existing clients, and how you work with them on an ongoing basis as well. So really what it becomes is a critical part, a critical element of your overall business planning process, right? So you take a look and evaluate those assets, the costs that are associated with the plans, the revenues that you're receiving. Think about what those are going to look like in 2, 3, 5 years, right? And what today's impacts might have as you look down the road. And then what's your pricing model? What's your service model? Define what that must look like, and then it gives you the capability to go back and check in on a regular basis, whether it's every 6 months, whether it's every year, but just to make sure that you're reviewing and refining and working in the business in the right way, so that you can align positive retirement outcomes for the participants of the plans that you're working on with the positive business outcomes that you need in order to be most successful. So again, from that survey, the Plan Advisor Experience Survey, as we talk about revenues and the money that's coming in, we talk about building that revenue stream and how are advisors being compensated or being paid for the business. And as you can see from that top chart, that commissions as a way of being compensated are being emphasized less, and more advisors are moving and shifting towards a flat fee structure, maybe a fee for service or perhaps something more asset-based, per project fee, or maybe even a per participant fee, or a hard dollar or a flat fee of some nature. And on the bottom, what you see is really just a graphic that identifies the average annual charge for the services for retirement plans based on their size. And as you can imagine, for the smaller plans, the average basis points for the plan, for the compensation, it runs in the range of about 50 basis points. And as you move to the larger plans, the basis points are smaller, but obviously on a much larger pie. So if you think about a $2 million plan, and you're earning a 50 basis points on a $2 million plan, well, that drives revenues to your practice of about $10,000 gross, right? And then if you look at a $10 million plan, well, maybe at the $10 million level, you're earning about 25 basis points. And that 25 basis points on 10 million, well, you're earning about $25,000. But you also have to consider that I'm probably spending more time managing that $10 million plan than I was on that $2 million plan. And this is the biggest issue that we start to see, because as you move upscale here to those larger plans, you know, a $20 million plan or a $50 million or $100 million plan, you're going to be spending more time on those plans. Now, the basis points you're earning based on the assets is coming down, but the time you're spending is actually going up. So you need to make sure that that is in line. And the issue around time management becomes critical. What we find, the range of what advisors are, in terms of time that advisors are spending on plans is incredibly broad. I mean, what we've heard for a $10 million plan, based on some data that we've received from Ann Schleck, is that their survey, their benchmarking survey that they do on a regular basis, they see advisors on a $10 million plan spending anywhere from 5 hours per year to service the plan, all the way up to about 135 hours per year on servicing that plan. The average, now that's the range, the average is about 35 hours per year. So you need to think about, for your business and for the clients that you're working with, what's the time that I think I need to spend to service that plan? And that's really where our Plan Profit Calculator becomes very helpful, because what it really allows you to do, or makes you think about doing, is look at what your billable hourly rate is. How much is your time actually worth? Now, many of you may have already gone through that process and identified what your billable hourly rate is. Many advisors, we find, have not. They've not really considered what their billable hourly rate is, and even less have taken the time to formally track their time on an ongoing basis. Again, based on the research that we've heard of and seen from Ann Schleck, only about a quarter of advisors are formally tracking their time in 2016. I mean, 75% of advisors are not. And the time that we have really is our most valuable asset. So it might make sense to think about, A, what you think your billable hourly rate should be. And if you don't know, there's a worksheet, and we have this worksheet available. It's at our website. But you can really look at this very simply. Like, how many hours a week do I plan on working? Right? How much time do I think I'm going to be taking off? And then how many available hours do I ultimately have? And then based on my billable hourly rate, you know, here's what my revenue ultimately would be. So as you can see on the side, $300 an hour, which is kind of an average that we see for a lead advisor or a principal advisor. If your billable hourly rate is $300 an hour, and if you're working 50 hours a week and 50 weeks for the year, well, that's going to drive revenues of $750,000 per year. If you work that same amount of time and you increase your billable hourly rate to $400 an hour, well, that's going to drive revenues of $1 million per year. The question is, how are you spending your time? Have you defined how you're spending your time? The best practice that we see is that advisors that are adamant about checking the profitability or managing the profitability in their plans will target their profitability level. They know their billable hourly rate, and they have some strategy in place for formally tracking their time, whether they're using an Excel spreadsheet, whether they've got some type of a system set up internally within their practice, whether they've got just simply a log book and they go back with their calendar and check it. They have some system that works for them. There is no magic bullet for tracking time, unfortunately. It takes some diligence in order to do it, but the results can lead to being much more informed in terms of how you're spending your time and allocating your time effectively, and it makes a difference. We had a scenario with an advisor who had what I call kind of service creep. She was spending a lot of time working with some of her clients on core activities. And as she looked at our calculator, she realized that she didn't have a client service agreement. She wasn't sure how she was spending her time. So she went through and identified how much time she was spending on various activities in supporting one particular client relationship. And as you can see, the output of her profitability in that first year, it was negative. Over time, it got a little bit better. But what we encouraged her to do was to maybe delegate some of her responsibilities to another member of her team, and also to incorporate a client service agreement so that they were really just doing those things that they were promising to do, and they weren't necessarily spending time on things that weren't required for them to deliver on their value. Started to leverage some other resources and delegate out some other responsibilities. So she did that, and the following year, she reviewed again what that plan looked like. She was able to identify $8,000, almost $8,000 more in terms of profitability to her bottom line, simply by making some minor adjustments to how she structured her practice and serviced her clients, and without raising the fees to her plan sponsor clients. So it can have a significant impact. This is just one plan in her practice. Imagine as you multiply that out over 5 plans, 10 plans, or 20 plans, whatever the case may be. So this issue on profitability does, with time management, does have a significant impact on profitability. So, as we said, in her case, right, she knew that she was spending too much time doing the wrong things, didn't have a client service agreement in case. So what would you do? What are the things that you might do if you go through this exercise and find that there's a plan, or maybe even several plans, that are not as profitable as you think they should be? Well, first of all, you want to take a look at the plan design structure. Maybe there's some changes you can make there. Think about the service model. Think about who's responsible for implementing the services. You might think about why you even want to have that plan in your practice. So first of all, take a look at the plan design structure. Right? 5 ideas here. You'll be utilizing less restrictive eligibility. In other words, getting more people involved or engaged into the plan, or utilizing some features like automatic enrollment or automatic escalation, those auto features that can just simply get more participants engaged and engaged at a higher level. You know, stretching the employer max, again, trying to find ways to enhance that engagement, utilizing new comparability profit sharing contribution, ways to get more assets potentially into the plan and more people engaged by utilizing some changes to plan design. Now this is where, again, utilizing those
Anders, we lost you there. Sorry, everyone, for the technical glitch. We'll try and fill the void here. If Anders can't rejoin us,
okay,
want to.
I am back.
Oh, all right.
I don't know what happened. I apologize. Can you tell me maybe where I cut off?
Just maybe 30 seconds ago, so not much.
All right, perfect. Well, why don't we start fresh on the service model here. I apologize again. I don't know. We're having some cell phone difficulties here today. So let's talk quickly about the service model, having an effective service model. Again, this goes back to some fundamental issues about how you're running your practice and the things that you're doing and utilizing perhaps a client service agreement. If you're not, highly recommend that you do that and identify, much like an IPS, an investment policy statement for the plan assets, it's an IPS for the relationship, right, where you define clearly what it is that you're looking to do for that plan sponsor, but how frequently you're looking to do it, etc. But most importantly, you might want to ask, whether it's an existing client or whether it's a brand new client, why they have a plan, right? You want to make sure that you're aligned with what their goals are for this plan. Make sure that you're devoting then your time on the activities that best support what they're trying to accomplish. So as an example, if it's a plan where they are really they have the plan because they feel they have to have it in order to recruit and to retain employees. They don't necessarily have a very paternalistic view of their employees. They don't necessarily think that they want to make sure they have a healthy retirement, but they know that they need to have that plan as a benefit in order to recruit new employees to the company. Well, okay, then that becomes a particular kind of need that you're going to help them provide a benefit at a very kind of a very base level. Whereas you'll have other employers that might look at the plan as a very important element of their benefits package and something that they are very dedicated to providing the opportunity for their employees to save enough money so that they can retire with dignity. Well, now that's a more paternalistic situation, and they therefore might want to do some more employee education or have some more enrollment meetings or provide more resources to the participants, make it a more visible part of the overall benefit package. And that's going to have an impact then on how you service that plan sponsor as well as the participants. So asking them why they have a plan is a very, very important and simple question that I think could be very telling as you develop these relationships with plan sponsors. The other thing, too, is to think about the opportunity you have to leverage some of the record keepers and other partners with whom you may work. They have a lot of great resources and tools that perhaps you could leverage in that relationship to help you take some things off of your plate so that you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to have somebody on your team do it. You can focus on other things that may be more in line with you adding or committed to your value proposition and allows you to focus on those things that you do the very best. The other thing, of course, is to consider how often you're applying those services. And I mentioned that case study earlier where the advisor ended up doing more for the client than they had anticipated when they first came on. And it was a situation where they had a good relationship. The business owner and the advisor knew each other for a long time, and the business owner felt very comfortable calling, and they would chat about different things. And it doesn't take a whole long amount of time before it starts to really dig into time that you could be spending on other things. So again, we have to look at this from a business perspective and make sure that you're tracking how much time you're spending on various activities. Is it the right thing for the lead advisor at the highest billable hourly rate to be spending their time on, or should it perhaps be delegated to somebody else? Or maybe it doesn't need to be done quite as frequently, where it could be done perhaps with technology as opposed to face-to-face. So think about some of those elements when it comes to servicing your plan sponsor clients. And then as you go through and consider what it is you need to do to deliver on your value proposition, identify really those most important core services that you have to deliver on, and what are those things that you could either outsource or delegate. So look at the core and the non-core, and the grid that's on this slide is a helpful tool as you go through that process. As you think about all the things that you're doing, you can use this very simply to identify where you should be spending your time, but then also look at your team members, right? So what are the things that they need to be doing? Where are their areas of expertise? And how much is their time worth? Right? So you want to look at that billable hourly rate for everybody on your team and think about, again, where it all fits into this matrix so that you outsource those things that aren't necessary, delegate those things that are delegatable, and there may even be some things that you find you could eliminate entirely that really aren't benefiting anybody and are really drawing away from your ability to deliver on your value proposition. And again, this is an opportunity to look at those folks, those partners that you work with that you can leverage, so you can take some things potentially off your plate. Now, the other thing, as we think about leveraging others and partnering, this is a business in which people do partner quite a bit. And it's especially when it comes to growing your business and building your practice, what we've been finding a lot of these lead advisors are doing on an ongoing basis and more formally is building a strategy around partnering into their overall business model, right, and their business plan for the year. So as they think about how they're going to find new clients, we know referrals continue to be the #1 source for new relationships. And you can see on the right-hand side where most advisors find new clients, either it's referrals from existing clients or referrals from strategic relationships. Well, what are some of those strategic relationships you know out there? Is it other advisors? Is it CPAs? Is it TPAs? Is it benefits consultants? Think about where you might be able to build a pipeline without you having to be the lead relationship, but where you have expertise and the ability to leverage the resources of another person to help you increase your market share, identify new opportunities, have access to a market that you may not have had access to before, and shore up some of those internal weaknesses, some of the gaps in your practice. And we've developed, again, a number of resources that would be maybe helpful to you as you look to integrate a partnering strategy. Because partnering, while not a new concept, it's a difficult concept. Lots of partnerships don't work out. And so what are some of the pitfalls to avoid? What are some of the guidelines and best practices to make sure that we build an effective partnering strategy right up front? Again, that's something that Brian and his team could share with you, and we'd be happy to chat with you about that as well. The other thing you want to think about is looking at those plans as you go through this profitability analysis is whether or not the plan does make sense for your business. And specifically, if it's a non-profitable plan, why do you continue to have the plan? Does it provide you with some other business opportunities, some other products that might be available for the participants in the plan, or is it a referral source or a gateway to other clients? And also think about, as you develop that service model, segmenting out your A and B clients and tiering your services in such a way that you're not providing A-level services to a C-level client, right? So your A clients you're going to be most integrated with, you're going to be providing the most high-level services for. B clients will be a step down. C-level clients who may have the potential to move up, you have to decide which way are they going. Are they moving up to B or A level, or are they moving down to what I call the Y clients? And why do you even have them? You need to have a strategy in place for those Y clients. And in some cases, it might make sense to tell a client that it just doesn't make sense for you to continue that business relationship, to fire a client. So think about how you want to handle that. Have that strategy. Again, that's another best practice of lead advisors that they call their client base periodically. So as we've been kind of going through this and thinking about it, really there's 4 simple steps to manage that profitability on an ongoing basis. You want to look at and review the profitability of the plans. Look at the metrics that have the greatest impact on the profitability of your practice. Identify the characteristics of those most profitable plans and tier and prioritize your clients and prospects based on the profitability that you expect from them, based on the criteria that are in place. And you can use this not, again, for just your existing clients, but prospects that you are thinking about pursuing. Right? If there's a prospect that you think could be a good fit for your practice, you can look at what would it take for me as an advisor to service this plan effectively to make it a profitable piece of business for me. The Plan Profit Calculator is something where you can go in and you can do that. And you can identify the type of services that you would provide and the amount of time that you might need to spend. So it helps you to identify both from a prospecting standpoint as well from a management standpoint. And consider those, that what, that how, the who, and the why to turn around either an unprofitable plan or to make sure you're prospecting the right kind of business. And then also you can share that information with your plan sponsor clients and talk about if they want more services from you, if they're looking for a broader relationship, that's great. That might allow you to talk about ways to add more revenue into your business or into your practice because you have some set guidelines on what you need to do and the revenues you need to receive in order to make it profitable. So this is a picture here of the dashboard or the front page of the Plan Profit Calculator on the Nuveen website. And again, it allows you to evaluate your plans based on industry, on assets, on employee count, and it's not just an individual plan, but we also just recently added the ability for you to aggregate plans across all your plans. So the more plans you have on there, you can take a snapshot of your entire book of retirement plan business. So the total profitability you can see on the slide, that box right above on the top, the total profitability in this case of a little over $500,000, the average plan profitability about $23,000. So what this allows you to do is to slice and dice the plans in your business and identify the characteristics, again, that are driving the most profitability. So you could look at them by industry, you could look at them by size, by assets under management, by number of participants, whatever characteristics you'd like to identify, and it'll tell you for that segment of your business or for the entire book of business how profitable it is. In addition, next month, we will be adding new functionality into the calculator that will incorporate the benchmarking data from Ann Schlatt from her fee benchmarking survey that will give you some guidelines on what other advisors are doing to service plans of the size that you're reviewing here, or the revenues that they're receiving on plans of that size. So as you're going through this process and looking at a plan, it'll give you an idea of whether or not you're in the ballpark. It'll give you an idea of whether or not you're providing the right services, or too many services, or too few services, and the specific types of services that other advisors are providing to plans of that size. So that we're very excited that that's going to be coming next month, and you can access that at our website, which is nuveen.com/401kcollege. And on this, you can see a picture of the output on the right-hand side, the picture of the Miller Industries, and the small box in the middle is where you can calculate the hourly rate for yourself as well as for all of the other individuals on your team. So with this up here, and as we kind of start to wrap up, let me just kind of review real quickly and share with you some of the best practices that we've covered and some of the best practices that we've identified in our work. You might want to jot these down. There's about 5 or 6 of them. First of all, think about tracking your time for the next week, or go back to last week's calendar or 2 weeks ago and identify how you spent your time over the week or 2 weeks or even a month if you have that capability, and ask your team members to do the same thing. It will help you to identify really how that time is being spent, and are you spending it on the right things. Second best practice, identify what you need your target profitability to be. Is it 25%, 30%? Some advisors are moving to 40% or even higher, but maybe that's higher than it needs to be. What is it for you? Every advisor and every practice is going to be different. So for you, think about what you need the revenues to be, what you need the profitability to be. The third best practice is to utilize the client service agreement. Right? Identify the specific services that you're going to provide and lay that out for your clients so they have an understanding. Not only does it guide what it is that you're going to do, but it gives you the ability to go back each quarter or each year and show them, based on that client service agreement, here's the things that we did. And you can see, here's the fees that we received, here's the services that we provided. Most plan sponsors have no idea how much it is that you're actually doing for them. They see the tip of the iceberg. They don't see everything that's underneath the water. Fourth, segment your clients. Identify the A clients and the B clients and the C clients, and think about who those clients maybe that don't make sense for your practice. Tier your services appropriately. And then fifth, leverage your resources. You have lots of great partners available to you out in the industry that are willing, ready, and able to work with you. Think about how you might be able to leverage some of those resources and take some things off your plate. What are your core competencies? What are your non-core competencies? What can you delegate? What can you outsource? And potentially, what could you even eliminate? And finally, on your team, think about who's doing what. Be clear with roles and responsibilities, and think about the people that you have doing specific tasks, and identify those kind of personality traits of those that maybe are the right people to be doing client service. Some folks are more geared towards doing the analytical things, and make sure that they're aligned appropriately. It'll make a practice much more efficient, but also might identify opportunities for somebody that may be in one area, an opportunity to grow in another area if that's what they would like to do. And so that's part of the skill of being a team leader. And as you grow your business and grow your practice, and you're running a more significant business, those kinds of issues become more important, especially for those folks that are supporting you and the business overall. So be clear on roles and responsibilities, and that'll then tie in to how you service your clients, how you segment your clients, and tiering your services, and it will help also with excelling on the profitability, because if you get the right people doing the right things, they'll do it more efficiently and more effectively, which again drives more revenues to the bottom line. And that, I believe, is the goal. It's something that we have seen, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, becoming a bigger and bigger issue, especially with the QL rule, conflict of interest rule. More and more advisors are looking at the workings of their business, the workings of their practice, and how their practice is going to grow. How can they do so in such a way where fees perhaps are being compressed? We're not in a situation where we can go out and say that we need to be asking for a little bit more money. Clients are really looking for us to do more for less. So in order for us to continue growing our profitability, we need to become more efficient, more effective in how we do that. So hopefully I've been able to give you a couple of ideas today, a couple of thoughts, and I would certainly be happy to take any questions that anybody might have, or that Brian, if you have, and if you want to start up the Q&A session, that's great.
Thank you very much, Anders, and thank you all for sticking with us. I know we ran a bit over and got a little bit of a late start, so appreciate it. We did have a couple of questions come in for those who want to stick around to hear Anders' thoughts on those, but I'll start with the softball, Anders. Is there any cost or anything needed to get access to this tool?
That is a softball. Thank you for asking. This is a tool that we make available to advisors on our website. The only thing we ask is that you register. So you'll go to the Nuveen website and register, and you'll be able to access the tool. It's on the retirement tab, and it will ask you to put in your username and password, and that's really all there is. So it's available to you whenever you need it, 24/7.
Great stuff. Another question related to kind of the hourly theme that you talked about throughout the presentation today. Based on really lining up hours spent on a case with revenue and profitability, have you seen advisors literally start to move to an hourly billable model, maybe more like attorney-type fees? I didn't see it on the list in the survey, but has anyone contemplated or implemented that type of arrangement?
We're seeing that in some cases. What we're seeing, and that's a very good question, what we're seeing is as advisors are identifying specific services, say it's they're going to go out and do a benchmark, right, for the plan, or they're going to develop, they could provide investment, policy services or whatever. They identify a specific service and they quantify the cost for their team to do that particular service. And in many cases, it's not predicated on the size of the plan, right? It's really a service that's done that can be done in a period of time. So they look at how much time would it take in order to accomplish that project or to accomplish that task, and they assign a number to that. So we are starting to see more of that. I think on the survey, it might be included under the fee for service bullet, although it doesn't say specifically hourly rate. It's more of like a fee for a service.
Okay. So probably translating that, and once they really have a handle on the hours it takes to do it, that becomes an easy exercise. But that makes sense. And as far as I imagine, in your experience working hands-on with advisors, have you seen a wide chasm of kind of the rate at which an advisor is profitable? For maybe an extremely efficient practice, it's Y, and for maybe someone who's not an expert and has to spend more time, it's Y plus $2,000. Have you started to see a pretty big difference in the level at which a firm can be profitable, and any kind of key characteristics that you've identified that would allow a group to be profitable at a lower benchmark?
Well, that's
keeping other things static. Obviously, if you cut service, then you can charge less and be profitable, but assuming that deliverable is the same, for example.
Well, and the tricky part of that question is that for each practice and each advisor, their deliverable is different. It's unique to their business, and it's unique to the clients and the types of clients that they service. But where we see advisors or practices or firms being successful is when they are very targeted in the types of clients that they work with. So it's not unlike a very efficient wealth management practice that might work specifically with attorneys or with doctors or with specific types of plans, because the more similar work that you do for similar types of clients, the more efficiently you can provide those services. So, so it really does vary. I can't say that I have a specific number or element. And again, it's really more how do they go about providing their services, and how thoughtful they are. Well, I guess the primary characteristic we see is for those teams or those advisors that are very thoughtful in managing their profitability, that they incorporate this strategy on an ongoing basis and are diligent, they tend to be able to identify their profitability more effectively. And I say that carefully because there's a lot of advisors that are very profitable, that have terrific revenues coming in, but they don't really put a lot of thought behind how profitable they are. But they are very profitable. They do a lot of really good business, and therefore they may say, "Gosh, I don't need to think about my profitability because I've got plenty of money left over. I'm doing just fine." But for those advisors that are being thoughtful about it and can quantify it and identify it, they're able to really seem to be able to squeeze more dollars out of it. They seem to be able to provide services more efficiently. And I think going forward in this environment, we're going to have to be more diligent in how we identify the services that we're providing and how we're going to justify the fees that we're receiving. And so, the old school, right, the old adapt school, you got to either adapt or die. I think it's a good best practice, a prudent practice to go forward and starting to put together those metrics that you can identify and manage on an ongoing basis, so that not only do you run your business and understand where the revenues are coming from and how profitable you are, but you're also able to do and provide that kind of analysis for your clients. I think that's going to be more and more important going forward.
Thank you. And the final question relates to the compensation models grid, and it asks what percentage of advisors receiving variable comp are fiduciaries. I suspect the data will not answer that question for us, but really, in writing, none of them should be fiduciaries, or else that would be a prohibited transaction, though I suspect if the new rules are passed, they would fall into that fiduciary category and really need to change that compensation model. So
the numbers I can share with you, see if I can find it real quickly, but it does ask in the survey, in that benchmarking survey, do you act as a fiduciary, or are you a fiduciary to clients' plans, and are you a fiduciary to plan participants? And in the most recent survey that I have, over 60% are acting as a 321 fiduciary, according to their responses, and about 30% are acting as a 338.
Okay.
Only about 20 to 25% are saying that they're not acting as a fiduciary at all or in any capacity, and that's to the plan client or to the plan sponsors. In most cases, they are not stating that they're acting as a fiduciary to the plan participants.
Got it. Okay. Well, thanks again, Anders, and thanks to Nuveen for putting together this great research and tool to help you all with your practices. And thank you for joining us for this session of Epic Insight, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Have a great afternoon and evening, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Brian. Have a great day, everybody.